Trump has announced plans to fire thousands of people who work at the Social Security Administration. The easiest way to find the fraudster is to stop payments and listen, because whoever screams is the one stealing. Anybody complaining about not getting a check is obviously a criminal.
Let's break down a few clips of Rachel Maddow as she continues expanding on how the Trump administration attempts to destroy our Social Security. Be sure to like this video, help get the message out. It's free. It's very much free. And let's get right into the chaos.
Trump has announced plans to fire thousands of people who work at the Social Security Administration, more than 12% of its staff. He has released plans to shut down dozens of local Social Security offices across the country. Simultaneously, Trump is also making changes that will force millions more people to have to go to Social Security offices in person rather than dealing with the agency over the phone as they can now. That means millions more elderly people and people with disabilities will be forced to somehow make their way physically to a Social Security office in person, if they can find one, because they're closing lots of offices, because they will need to get help in person from a Social Security staffer, provided they can find one who hasn't been fired.
And this is the first thing I will always highlight when we have this discussion. This is exactly what they're doing to the Department of Education, except there they have enough support to admit that what they're doing is destroying it. It's the same playbook, however. You can't directly cut the funding without Congress, so instead circumvent Congress, mass close local offices, lay off employees at a mass level, cut whatever services or programs you can. In this instance, they're cutting the phone program at Social Security. That way it runs as inefficiently as possible. That way you can pull as much funding from it as you can. If you need further justification, cry fraud. Now it's many elderly people, many disabled people who simply can't drive that'll be forced to go in person. Their local office might have also been closed. So maybe there's some people we're looking at like hours of drives who just can't drive. Some don't have the means to get a ride, or maybe they're just bedridden, period. It threatens benefits from a large demographic of people. Like that's 3 demographics I just thought of on the top of my head, of whom also would be relying on Social Security the most if they're hindered in the way where they can't get around. And as to what Trump thinks of that, and the administration thinks of that, like we'll hop into the clip here. They just seem to think that who cares if they miss a payment or two?
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
Howard Lutnick, Wall Street titan, Trump cabinet member, saying that his mother-in-law wouldn't call and complain. She'd just wait until next month, see if her check came then. Anybody complaining about not getting a check is obviously a criminal.
You can apply this logic to literally anything, and it wouldn't make sense a single time. You could apply it to 100 things, and it would be wrong. It would be illogical 100 times. This dude is worth $100 million. He's literally a billionaire. It's funny that I said $100 million as an exaggeration, and that was an understatement. This is a billionaire by proxy of just being his mom. I would hope at least she's privy to some of that billions of dollars that he has. Maybe that has something to do why she wouldn't call if she didn't get her Social Security check, being in a billionaire family. And I don't know, one of the 2/3 of seniors that are kept out of poverty by their Social Security check, one of the 90% of seniors who rely on a Social Security check to pay some or all of their living expenses, well, they might notice if their check is missing. Their landlord might notice when they can't pay rent. Their doctor might notice if they can't pay for their treatments or their medicines. The entitlement of these people, which I guess is to be expected when you appoint a cabinet of 13 billionaires, but the lack of self-awareness of how out of touch, how much they sound like snobby elites is astounding. It's not half as astounding, however, as the fact that people buy this nonsense when they hear it come out of the mouth of a billionaire.
How does that comport with what you understand of the reality of getting a Social Security check? And who in your life you know gets a Social Security check? Mr. Lutnick went on to say that anybody like Elon Musk, who had been inside a payment system like PayPal, quote, knows the easiest way to find the fraudster is to stop payments and listen, because whoever screams is the one stealing. This is not like a random podcaster dude. This is cabinet official in the Trump administration while they are devastating Social Security.
And notice how this works, or how it's progressed, right? Because it starts with an inch and then you go and you take a yard when you get that. They are very clearly now attempting to set the table to cut payments from those on Social Security on the premise of, well, we're pausing the payments to find fraud. And then who knows what they might do to those who revolt or have the most to say about it, as they clearly think, oh, well, if you're upset, that means fraud. Whereas Rachel said, how does that align with the people that you, and I mean you personally, let's break the fourth wall here. How does that align with the people that you personally know in your day-to-day life that receive Social Security? Are they people who rely on this money to live, who are living well below the means of what any person would want to live on? Paycheck to paycheck, Social Security check to Social Security check, I should say. Or are they people who are mooching off the system, taking this because, oh, I receive it, but I don't really need it? I mean, the people making $65 a day are not the mooches. They're not the frauds. They're not the ones doing corruption. But the guy making $8 million a day, Elon Musk, probably is.